What's up, everyone? This is Leon, and I am here to give you guys another quick and dirty paperback horror novel review. Today, we are looking at Blood Heritage by Sheri S. Tepper. This book was published by Tor in 1986. I have to admit, this one I was initially drawn to because of that cover. We've got what looks like a pretty mean looking, fanged, tentacled, blue demon type thing that looks like it just escaped a spherical cylinder, almost kind of like a genie from hell. And that was very appealing to me when I first saw this in a bookshop, and I immediately bought it. Let's take a look at what the synopsis says. Badger Edison does not believe in demons until a shrieking, freezing horror escapes its ancient prison, a soulless hunger. Hunger that turns a beautiful woman into a shriveled husk before she has time to scream. Hunger that has no form, no substance, but fangs and claws and eyes to seek its prey. Badger Edison does not believe in magic. But the old blood rituals are the only way to stop the voracious evil that pursues his wife and son. And they demand that Badger must sacrifice one of the two he loves to save the other. Badger Edison does not believe in terror. Now he is living it. Okay, so this book follows Badger Edison. He's a widower who's been grieving over the tragic death of his wife, Carolyn, and young son, Robbie, who died in a boating accident 11 months ago. He lives in New York. He's kind of an East Coast aristocrat. His job is not really specified. All that we learn is that he's a quote-unquote problem solver for companies. He's got an older sister, Vivian, a very sort of highfalutin woman who's kind of like a mother figure to Badger. Toward the start of the story, Vivian invites Badger over to a housewarming party in her swank new East Coast apartment. And while he's there, she introduces him to a young grad student named Malia, who is house sitting her neighbor. Her neighbor is this kind of eccentric art history professor who's off somewhere, like in China. And so this grad student has been staying next door. And, Vivian thinks, well, my brother needs to start meeting new people. So they meet. And when the lady Malia finds out that Badger is a quote-unquote problem solver, she asks him if he could help her solve a little problem or at least give her some advice. And she invites him to her place next door, the apartment that she's house sitting. Badger, like any man would do, acquiesces, goes next door. And Malia describes to Badger a vision that she has had of a man murdering a young woman with a cane in that very apartment. So it turns out that Malia is a clairvoyant who can see things, but she doesn't know if it's something that happened in the past or something that will occur in the future. Badger thinks that she's kind of nuts and tells her that the apartments are brand new, so there's no way that this vision could have happened in the past. And he gets a little weirded out by her, goes back to the party. A little later on in the party, Badger's unctuous brother-in-law, whom he doesn't like very much, comes and tries to console him about, the death of his wife and son. When Malia overhears this conversation, she's been drinking a little bit. She kind of blurts out suddenly, very awkwardly in front of everyone at the party, "Your son's not dead, Badger." And this kind of causes a little bit of a scene. Badger is even more weirded out and, leaves the party. We flash forward, sometime, maybe a week or two later, and Badger finds out that there's been a murder next door to his sister's apartment. A murder that is very, very similar to the vision that this Malia, this clairvoyant lady, had described to Badger. Now Badger's a little intrigued, and he remembers what Malia said about his son not being dead. So he goes off and he tries to find this woman to kind of get some answers. Finally finds Malia. She's since she had moved out of the professor's house. The professor had come back, and Malia drops everything, and teams up with Badger and the professor as well with his three dogs, and they go and try to solve the mystery of what happened to Badger's wife and son. And Badger is still sort of skeptical. He's a very pragmatic man. He doesn't believe, as the synopsis said, he doesn't believe in magic and these kinds of things. But he loves his wife. He wants to find his wife and son. If they're still alive, he needs to get to the bottom of it. And they do some sleuthing. They eventually find out that Badger's wife, Carolyn, is basically the descendant of this, blood heritage. Basically, one of her distant ancestors, a man found a demon way back in the day, the demon right here, and he had trapped the demon in a bottle. Here's the bottle, and kept the demon. And then over the years, over the centuries, this family, they had this demon. They found out that the demon could communicate with them, so they let the demon out, and they trapped the demon in the family, this kind of corn maze. There's this corn maze, and they kind of imprisoned it in the center of this corn maze, locked it up behind these fancy iron bars, and they used the demon to tell it, because the demon could foretell the future. And so the demon told it things, and it allowed this family to amass a fortune. Now, why this demon would help them when it's being imprisoned, I don't know. But so this demon, meanwhile, of course, now is very, very upset at this family. And the demon ultimately escapes its prison, and it wants to basically get revenge on every member of the family because it has been imprisoned for centuries. And so what happened was that Carolyn had been warned by her father, who she didn't know was her father. She kind of thought she was raised by some other guy. When she finds out her real father, and he tells her this family secret, he tells her she needs to run away, that she's in danger, her and her son, because they're both, blood relations, and this demon thing will come after them. So she ended up faking her death, her and her son's death, and running away to sort of elude the danger of this demon. And this demon, by the way, is also known by different names, depending on what culture you're from. It's known as the Wendigo. Some cultures refer to it as the Star Eater. Some cultures refer to it as the pit dweller or something, or the demon of the pit. And so she runs away, and Badger is hell-bent on finding her and his son, even though he knows that the demon apparently knows what he knows. So at no point does it occur to him that maybe she ran away for a reason and he would be endangering her by going after her. That doesn't matter, though. And this demon, one of the cool things, I'll get to, this book does have some problems, but one of the cool things is how this demon attacks people. It does kill. There are not very many, set pieces or deaths in the book, sadly, but a couple of them. At one point, when the demon escapes, actually, the demon escapes because a niece of Carolyn's father. Carolyn's father has died, and the niece is going to inherit his land, and she's like this greedy woman. She stupidly, or unwittingly, opens up these gates in the center of this corn maze and releases the demon. And it's a pretty cool scene when she does that. The demon can only be seen if you're wearing these special like spectacles, these glasses. Otherwise, it kind of is just this whirling wind, this freezing wind that kind of whooshes out, and it attacks people, kind of hits them and spins them in a vortex, and all of the blood from their bodies kind of exits out of all of their orifices and sort of swirls around and coalesces around the victim in this kind of blood cloud. And only then can people not wearing those special spectacles see the demon. It kind of becomes delineated in the blood of the victim. And then the victim sort of just crumples in the ground in this shriveled husk of a corpse. So the demon kills the niece. Sadly, I would have liked to see more demon action. And, it's out pursuing Carolyn and Badger's son, Robbie. Now, the problem with this book is that it is very, very slow to get going. Not a whole lot happens for the first 100 pages. Lots and lots of character setup, which would be fine. I appreciate a book that takes its time to develop characters. The only problem is I really didn't give a shit about any of these characters. As I said, Badger and his sister, they're kind of these East Coast aristocrats. They kind of have that smarmy, annoying, like, rich person dialogue. And Badger just kind of seems like a whiny little bitch, to be frank. And the other characters, Malia, the clairvoyant girl who kind of decides to help him, she seems like the most selfless person ever. She just met this guy at the party, and then he seeks her out, and she just drops everything to help him. Like, and she's putting herself in very grave danger, and she doesn't even think. I mean, I think she does mention once or twice in the book, like, why am I doing this? And sometimes, I, as the reader, asked, yeah, why are you doing this? Why are you putting yourself through this for some guy who's clearly using you? You barely know this guy. But the professor I kind of liked. The professor was this kind of quirky, eccentric guy. He has these 3 dogs named after, like Buddhists with these ridiculously long names. He was kind of fun. But the characters were not that, sympathetic. I don't need to love characters, honestly. But I didn't really care what happened to them. And so if a novel is going to not have a whole lot of action and it's not going to have a lot of gore, that's fine, but it needs to make up for it by at least having, characters that I give a shit about. Unfortunately, I didn't really give a shit about these characters. And, as I said, the pacing, very deliberately paced. It wasn't until halfway through the novel that we kind of learn the history of Carolyn's family and kind of what's going on. I don't know if I'm just obtuse, but sometimes I was reading this thing and I didn't really understand, like, what was going on. The writer kind of doles out exposition in a very kind of maddeningly paced way. Sometimes I'm just like, get to it. What's going on? Like, what's happening here? Like, it took a little too long sometimes to figure all that out. And but the central idea is cool. I do like the idea of this demon, this Star Eater, or demon of the pit, being released from its prison and going after the members of the the family that had imprisoned it. And I like the way it attacks these people and dispatches them. I just wish that there was a a little more of that. The book also kind of goes off into these needless like subplots. Like 2/3 of the way through, they learn that Carolyn and Robbie have gone to this ashram in Colorado, where Carolyn used to kind of go as a child, and then they confront these sort of devil worshipping virgin rapist cultists, and it just felt like that was didn't really need to be there. Like it kind of made the novel needlessly kind of convoluted. I wish it would have just kind of pared down and just stuck with the essential plot of this demon kind of coming after the wife and son. But on the plus side, the book is very well written. It was kind of a breath of fresh air, especially after the last Zebra book I read and reviewed. It was nice to read a book by a writer who has a clear command, a solid command of the English language, and writes quite at times poetic and nice descriptive language. So that was nice to read. But overall, a little too slow. Not really enough happened. The characters kind of annoyed me. A little surprised actually, because the author here, Sheri S. Tepper, she's known. She wrote more science fiction, I believe, and fantasy. And she was kind of funny that I later read that she was known as a feminist science fiction writer, and I just did not see that here at all. I didn't see any strong female characters. In fact, the female characters were either like evil or just kind of dumb and just acted in stupid ways. But overall, I'm glad I read it. Like I said, it was very well written, and it had some cool elements. The demon was cool, and the few kind of scenes that we got with the demon were fun. Just would have liked to see a little more of that. But yeah, that basically is Blood Heritage by Sheri S. Tepper. So that's gonna do it. That's gonna do it for today's review. Wish I could have given it a glowing review. Unfortunately, just it had some problems. I think I'm gonna have to be quite selective with my next book, because this is 2 in a row that I have not been, totally thrilled about, and I hate that. I don't want to be. This channel isn't meant, to be negative. I always try to find the positives in these books, and hopefully, my next review for you guys is going to be one in which I am just totally raving about the book and just singing its praises. That's what I want to do. That's why I created this this channel. I want to celebrate these books. So yeah. Here's hoping. I'm going to be very selective and hope that I get a really good one for next time. But yeah, keep a lookout. I'm going to probably have a collection update posted pretty soon. I got some stuff in the mail, and I have a few things that I picked up last week from a brick and mortar bookshop. So keep your eyes open for that. And until then. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. I will see you later. Bye-bye.